just going to let this happen.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. We're already on antibiotics, so what's it matter?
What does it matter? Like, yeah.
And
come at me.
So then he comes to me and goes, Mom, something's poking me in my boot. I said, is it a cactus thorn? He goes, no. And I said, I bet it is. And he took it off. And I said, look, it's pokey. It's cactus thorn from kicking cactus. And he said, no, it's not. It's from a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And I said, I haven't seen any of those today. And he goes, well, I have. And walked off with soppy, wet socks in my house. And I was very upset. This happened 2 days ago. I was very upset about it.
Obviously, the Tyrannosaurus Rex did it. Obviously. I mean, it's an obvious answer.
Yeah, he's also very into lying right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then he calls me a liar. Because I'm trying to teach him what lies are, and so now he just calls me a liar to anything. Doesn't matter what we're talking about. Here's your grilled cheese. Liar. Like, it doesn't... He still doesn't understand the concept of lying. He just wants to say liar.
Nice. I like that. Well, yeah. Tantrums are usually because their brains are not fully formed. Most people's brains don't fully develop until they're in their 20s, so you have that to look forward to, guys. 20s.
Counting down the days.
So it takes a long time, and so parts of their brain are not fully developed to process feelings and why they're having feelings, and that's why you get those explosive meltdowns. And people are always like, oh my gosh, they just throw fits. And I'm like, yeah, that's generally describes. That's why they call them the terrible twos, is because that's generally when that starts. Because up until that point, they kind of sail through life. I mean, mine did.
They cry, but it's not like, it's cry because I'm wet. It's cry because I'm hungry. It's not cry because the lollipop is open and then the little label came off and I can't act like it's a superhero lollipop anymore.
It's completely different dynamics. It's like they start to like associate things in the real world, but they're not really in the real world. They're in their world, right?
Yeah, it's important in their world.
Yes. And so that is why temper tantrums happen. Because they can't express what they're feeling and why. And so they cry and they scream and they kick and they bite and they hit and they do all the things that we don't want them to do. So
I don't know about you, but I'm always logical. Like that's my go-to to fix anything.
Mm-hmm.
But with that type of tantrum,
mm-hmm.
a lot of times, even though you're trying to explain the logic, they're not going to catch on to it while they're screaming bloody murder.
Nope.
So you have to use other techniques to get them down first before you can start explaining what's going on.
Yeah. So,
because I feel like I see some people in a shopping center and they're just trying to explain everything and they're raising their voice, which to a child looks like you're angry.
Well,
you're raising your tone, you're raising your voice, even though you're trying to explain what's happening to the child while it's screaming. It looks like anger to the child, mm-hmm. and so it's just increasing it.
Yeah, you're not helping anything because they're not processing it in a rational way. They're processing it in their world, and then their world understanding. If a voice is raised, you're yelling and upset.
Yeah.
That's it.
So now
it doesn't matter if they're already yelling, because obviously they're yelling because they're upset, and they know they're upset. They don't know why, and they don't know how to fix it. They just know they have to be upset. And so, like in the same way that they can laugh about anything, they can cry and throw the temper tantrum over anything. And so, determining the cause of the tantrum usually helps, right? Like you're trying to puzzle out why are they throwing. Like you're at the store, right? And they're throwing a fit. Did they ask for something and did you tell them no? Are they tired and they're cranky and this is the only way they know how to express that they're tired and they're cranky is by throwing the fit? And that it's not personal attack on mom or dad, but it's an attack on themselves because they don't know how to tell you, I'm really tired and I need a nap.
And I saw something sparkly down that aisle and you kept walking and you didn't instantly know that I needed to go down that other aisle to see what the sparkly thing was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so talking to them can help, but it can be a challenge because they're not rational people. Toddlers are not rational beings. I would never be like, oh, it's a rational toddler. Those words don't even go in the same sentence. I love it when my husband says something like,
I don't negotiate with the terrorist. Things like that. Like, it's so funny. Because he's so quiet of a person, and he'll just rattle something off like that, and it's so funny when he says it.
Yeah, mine was throwing a fit about something, and I looked at him and I said, I don't negotiate with terrorists, and I just kept walking, so I totally understand his sentiment.
But you know what's funny is, like, I hear that all the time now, and I don't remember really hearing that ever when I didn't have a kid.
Yeah, but now that you have a kid...
like, there's so many people that use similar phrases to that, and it's so funny.
Yeah. I don't negotiate. I do try to determine causation. I'm really big on, we could probably solve this if I'm rational.
Yes.
Right? Not they need to be, I, as the adult and as the parent, I need to be rational. And so I try to think of it in those ways. And so I try to think of, okay, what time is it? Are they hungry? Hungry leads to temper tantrums real fast. In any age group, a temper tantrum. Food. They're hungry. They need a drink. Nap time. If it's generally their nap time and you are out shopping, you're going to probably get a temper tantrum because they're tired. This is not their routine. Messing up routine is another reason you could have a temper tantrum. If some kids are just very routine children.
That's how my kiddo is.
They want to get up at a certain time, on your schedule or not. They have a routine that they like to do every morning. Mine likes to get up and go turn on the TV and curl up with a blanket. It's the first thing he does. So if we're at Grandpa's house and he can't go do that, like, meltdown. First thing in the morning. Routine is destroyed.
With my kiddo, what I like to do first is I start talking about breathing because mine forgets to breathe and he just freaks out. And so we talk about breathing typically first, and then I start just asking questions. So before I start the logical part to try and bring down and understand the situation, I ask lots of questions, and that's creating input and making him stop and think so he's not screaming as much, and slowly but surely he'll stop the screaming and he'll just be talking. He might be crying talking, but he's talking and he's making answers, formulating answers, and telling me what I asked about. Sometimes it's something stupid like, well, if I don't know why they're upset, sometimes I'm just like, what color is this?
It's a good redirection.
How many toes does this cow have? Like, those kind of things. And then I start going, you were really upset. Why, what occurred that made you this upset? And sometimes I'll already know, so then I can target questions without doing the random distraction questions, because I don't like those. They tend to get more frustrated because now you're ignoring their needs.
Right, you're
but
pointing
I
over
only
here.
do that if I don't know why he's upset,
Yeah.
so that I can get him to talk, and then we can do our logical. Even if he's crying,
and still have a discussion.
I can still have a discussion with when he's crying.
And you can totally have a discussion with a 2 and 3 year old. I want to point that out. Like, we've always, I am always been that type of a parent. I don't know how to do the baby talking and all, like, that's just not who I am as a person. And
I'm
so
not that way either.
I'm always very straightforward. Even it works pretty well with the teenagers too, but I'm very straightforward, and I'm like, so let's just have a talk. Like, what's going on? Like, oh, did you want that? Well, you have to ask. Like, I don't, like, and so it's always been that. So I think that helps with sometimes the temper tantrums because we're already having that open line of communication. But that's not always the case. Sometimes they're to that point where they're mad and they're screaming, and there's not much you can do.
Get across.
Yeah. Talking in a quiet and calm voice can sometimes help because they need to be mad and they need you not to be mad. They need to have their moment. I'm not saying that's going to be the best for everybody. It has worked in some occasions for me where I'm just like, hey, bud, I see that you're upset. Do you want to talk about it? Or, hey, bud, I see that you're upset. Why don't we step over here? Hey, bud, I see that you're upset. I don't want you to hurt yourself. Can we move locations? Like,
my
there's some
kiddo
ways.
definitely hurts himself when he gets upset. And so one of the ways I curb that is I ask them, do you want a hug? Because sometimes that'll distract him enough not to try and hurt himself by accident. By flailing and doing those things.
Yep, hitting
their
heads.
But I do ask in those moments because my kiddo, if I don't ask, he's going to get angry that I hugged him. Because remember, temper tantrums are not logical.
No.
And so even if it's something that would soothe them any day of the week, if you just do it without asking, sometimes they're already that frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
My kiddo is very dramatic that way.
Yeah, we try to do let's go sit and talk, even from little age when he get upset. I've done it with the older kids too. I'm like, hey, why don't you come sit in mommy's lap and let's talk? Like, we're at home, we're upset. I probably know why already, but let's talk. Because then it gives them, even if they can't verbally put it out there, like you would, like most 2-year-olds cannot build full sentences, right? Like, that's not a thing. You can at least give them the opportunity to verbalize while they're upset. And that's really good for teaching them so that when they go into school and stuff, that they're not punching somebody because they didn't get their way.
Oh my goodness, it was so adorable last week. So my kiddo's just starting to self-regulate. It's taken a very long time. And he came up to me and it was so sweet. He says, Mom, I really need to talk to you. And I just so happen to be in a different room on my phone. So of course, put my phone down immediately and I look at him, I say, what's up, buddy? He goes, I need to talk it out. And I almost cried because I was like,
fantastic.
all of this work has come to this moment
Full
at
circle.
4.5 years old.
Oh my
I was
gosh.
so happy. And of course, you know, whatever it was just something that upset him about a toy or something. But that's not the point. The point is that he self-regulated himself, did not melt down in another room.
Huge for him.
It was so huge.
I'm so proud of him.
Such a tiny, I'm getting all teary-eyed right now. Such a tiny moment to most people, but to me it was monumental.
And see, mine has always been very easy to talk to and talk him out of the stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
And so he's made things very easy because he is pretty easygoing. But you know, he bit somebody at school the other day.
Well, they probably deserved it, but
They
we can't tell
probably
him
did.
that.
They probably did, I know.
We can't tell the kid that.
No, and so instead I was like, dude, you bit somebody? And he goes, yeah. I was like, why would you do that? And he goes, well, they weren't listening. And I was telling them that we needed to do this, and I didn't like them what they were doing. And he goes, and they just kept, and so I bit them.
And was that an appropriate reaction?
And that's what I told him. I
like
said,
my next step.
I said, so are we supposed to bite our friends? And he was like, I don't know. I was like, yes, you do. I was like, what are you supposed to do? And he goes, tell a teacher. And I was like, exactly. I said, did you tell the teacher? And he goes, no. I said, well, that's the problem, and that's why you're in trouble, because you did not do what you knew you were supposed to do.
Another thing,
so they will get there.
Similar situation with that is I add how that other kid might react, and a consequence to that of they might not want to play with you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big deal to my kid. He wants to play with other kids, so it's not as big a deal to your kid because
he's like, I don't need anybody.
If there's other kids in the room, he's going to be like, I don't care.
Well, he's very self-sufficient, but yes.
It can help curb some of those bad behaviors if you let them know, hey, friends don't like being bit.
Mm-mm. Yeah, no, you're probably right that would work pretty good. Not with mine, but it definitely helps yours, and that's good, because they need to understand the consequences of some of their actions, and you can start teaching them as early as 2. It's the same way you teach them not to touch a hot stove because it's going to burn them. You can teach them the proper way of how we handle things. It kind of falls into the gentle parenting, and I don't want to go too much into that. But anyway, you get the idea, I hope. If you don't, hit me up. We'll talk. You can also offer alternatives to temper tantrums. So sometimes it's temper tantrums over like a cookie before dinner, right? They know that they want the cookie. Mine does this a lot.
Mine does Cheez-Its before dinner, and it makes me so angry.
Because you know they're not going to eat dinner.
Exactly.
And so...
when he was smaller, he couldn't reach them.
Yeah. So mine grabbed the stool last night and was like, I'm going to get some candy. And I was like hell you are. So I told him, and he looked at me and he goes, no, I'm going to get the candy. And I said, again, like hell you are. I said, go put the stool up. And he goes, but I just want the candy. And I'm like, no. I said no. It's like 9:30 at night. Absolutely not. You may not have that candy. Ugh. Can I have some in the morning? Yes, you can have some in the morning. And so...
you have to compromise somewhere sometimes if they're regulating and they're asking questions.
Yeah, and so it's the other alternative, right? He can't have the cookie before dinner, but you're like, hey, If you take 5 bites of your pizza, you can have a cookie.
And it's a big deal that he came up with a solution.
Well, it's because we do that a lot.